Charles Jeffries with Rainier Avenue Radio, and today we're going to deconstruct the white supremacy, or actually deconstruct the myth of white supremacy. Okay, people always talk about racism and giving you this occupation in terms of workshops and seminars on racism because deconstructing racism, but this racism in itself is not the real issue. I mean, because people talk about racism and reverse racism and all that, but they don't really talk about power relations. Power, okay? And when you look at who has the power, and the assumption of white supremacists is people who are of Western European descent are superior genetically and otherwise to all people in the world, other people in the world, which we know now that's not true. Okay, and so first we're going to look at that. First, we're going to define white supremacy, look at it from what it really is. Then the next, we're going to talk about racism within the United States. Then we have a Native American debating with I guess you can call them a white supremacist or cowboy mentality. And then we talk about the importance of history, followed by Joy Reid and her comments on terms of qualifications. And then we'll look at racism against Mexicans. And then we're talking about white backlash. And then we're talking about how certain blacks who make white folks comfortable, we're going to end up with Jasmine Crockett's speaking. But white supremacy, the assumption that people of European descent are superior to everybody else and have the right to wipe out, control, and do everything else to other folks. And so his first video is by Neely Fuller, and he basically defines what we're talking about.
Listen, if you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Now, sometimes people say, well, you mean everything that I understand will confuse me if I don't understand racism? Yes, because racism is the dominant political and religious motivating force among the people of the planet in all 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. That covers just about everything that any person, minute by minute, might be doing or engaged in any time of day or night, anywhere on the planet. Most white supremacists say, who, me?
Yes.
I'm not a white supremacist. I don't believe in racism. I'm a nice guy. Hey, I'll shake your hand. You know, if you want a hug, I'll give it to you. You know, I don't believe in that stuff and all like that. And all the time he's wink, wink, wink.
Yeah.
All right. This is the modern day, the refined white supremacist. Mr. John Wayne apparently wasn't very refined. That's why I'm quite sure that the refined white supremacist said, hey, you know, we all feel that way.
Yeah.
But you don't say it out loud in this day and time. This is to be expected.
Yes, sir.
You should always expect. You're in a world dominated by racism. There's one government on the planet. That's the government of white supremacy. All of the so-called governments are just pretend governments. They seem like they're governments. The white supremacists make the major decisions among the people of this planet. Most of the people on this planet are classified as non-white. The major decisions that affect the everyday existence of anybody classified as non-white is going to be decided by racist man and racist woman, people who are sometimes, in a generic sense, called white supremacists, people who believe in mistreating people based on color. They're the smartest and most powerful people on this planet. So therefore, when he goes into the store, I mean, like I said just a few minutes ago, black people have been given the reputation of being potential thieves and robbers, you know, on a small-time level, because the greatest thieves are the white supremacists themselves. That's where we all learned it. I mean, because they steal whole continents, okay? So that takes care of that. I mean, you're talking about theft. I mean, they glorify thievery and robbery, but they pass it on to their slaves, to their victims. So therefore, we have that kind of reputation. So we should expect that. I expect to be profiled all the time. You should, you know, we're not in paradise. We are in a system of white supremacy worldwide.
Yes, sir.
If you have color in your skin, you are a prisoner of war already.
Think about that. Prisoner of war. Okay, but think in terms of power. We're talking about circulating the power. And in the United States, you have your north racism in the north and the racism in the south. Racism in the north oftentimes is more difficult to see. Okay, even though it's still there, where the racism in the south is in your face. Okay, it's really interesting. I lived in Nashville for 4 years. And one of the things that most of the whites I met down there were not just proud of being white, they're arrogant about being white. I'm white and I'm God's gift to the earth. Okay, I don't really see that much in Northwest, but still that whole mentality, okay, everybody else should be messed over and it's okay for us. But anyway, this next video talks about racism in the North compared to racism in the South.
In the South, the old story goes, whites don't care how close you get to them. They just don't want you to get too high up. And in the North, whites don't really care how high up you get. They just don't want you to get too close. So in the North and South, you had two different types of segregation and institutional racism. The type in the South was overt, it was vulgar, and it was direct. It said, don't apply. In the North, there was equal opportunity. Nevertheless, systemic racism, far more insidious and far more pervasive and much more difficult to tackle. Civil rights movements in the South made a lot of sense because the evil was so blatant and so clear-cut. Whites in the South didn't mind you living right next door to them, but they smacked down blacks who called for civil rights or economic mobility. Whites in the North didn't mind a black millionaire so long as the African American lived nowhere near their neighborhood. It was simply a different form of oppression.
Think about that. A different form of oppression, but it's all pretty much the same. And one of the things that makes racism so intense is because people's lack of understanding of history. I mean, when we hear these European Americans talking about this is God's country and we have a right to be here, whether it's in Utah or something like that, they forget that this land was first occupied by Native Americans.
This is the land of the founders, of the white pioneers who built this nation.
Founders? You didn't found anything. You invaded it. This country was built on theft, genocide, and slavery. You didn't build it alone. You came here because you couldn't build a future in Europe, so you stole ours. You killed millions of Native people, burned their villages, erased their names from history.
Think about that. This is our land, but they stole it. They were stealing a whole continent for stealing a car or some jewelry, stealing a whole continent. Okay, what we're talking about. Okay, and the next one is talking about, once again, the importance of history. Understanding history in Texas and Florida, where they replace history with fairy tales.
Man, I was talking to this young brother the other day about Jim Crow, and he said, who was that? Did he hoop for the Lakers? I said, Lord help us. I don't know what y'all doing over there, but over here, we're bringing back the real history, because I'm confused, y'all. Genuinely confused. How in the world did an entire generation grow up in America and know absolutely nothing about what America actually did to us? Not the school book version, not the watered down version, not the we all came together and held hands version. I'm talking about the real history. Some of y'all don't realize this, but the system didn't just steal our land, our wealth, our opportunity. They stole our memory. They buried our story so deep that even our own people can't find it anymore. And it blows my mind how many grown black folks, smart, talented, full of potential, don't know a single detail about redlining. They never learned how banks marked off whole communities with red ink and decided we would never get loans, never get homes, never build wealth. They don't know about the Jim Crow, the laws that told our parents where they could sit, where they could eat, what fountain they could drink from, and what would happen if they even looked at a white person in the face the wrong way. They don't know about the civil rights era. They don't know that it wasn't 400 years ago, it was yesterday. Your mama lived it, your grandmama survived it, and some of y'all got parents who were born before black people were even fully protected by the law. But somehow the history got erased on purpose. Because if a people don't know what they survived, they don't know what they're capable of. If they don't know how they were held back, they'll think the struggle is their fault. If a people don't know the truth, they'll fall for every lie the system feeds them today. And that's exactly what we see. We got young people thinking oppression is a myth. We got folks in their 30s who think we just didn't work hard enough. We got people calling our culture trash without understanding who trashed it, why they trashed it, or how they did it. History didn't just disappear, it was hidden on purpose, sanitized, edited, cut, rewritten, because the real story exposes what this country built itself on, and it exposes the lies they still tell today. And that's why we talk about it, not to stay stuck, not to complain, but to wake our people up, because once you know the truth, you move different, you see the world different, you understand your power different. And the system knows that, because over here, we're not letting our history die. We're bringing it back so that the next generation knows exactly who they are and what they came from.
All right. Yes, Joy Reid's the next individual to talk about. But think about history, how important history is, and how we downplay it. Okay, and now they want to hide different types of history. And in Texas and Florida, if you have the wrong type of book or say the wrong thing in class, you can lose your job. Okay, it's kind of similar. I have a student who just got back from teaching in China, and he was saying that every semester they would have someone from the Communist Party sit in the back of the room to make sure he didn't say the wrong thing. And one of the things they definitely didn't want to talk about was Tiananmen Square. Okay, so it's really interesting how trying to control history. Okay, but Joy Reid, she talked about something that most middle-class blacks go through growing up. I mean, like, my elders used to tell me, you have to work twice as hard as a white kid to get that expectation. You got to go out there and study even harder. You got to know his history or her history better than they do. Okay, and that's the key. Know their history better than they do. And I can even say that to those people, Charlie Kirk people. I know your history better than you do, and you know nothing about my history. But here's Joy Reid.
You guys have everything you want. You have legal racial profiling. You've ended DEI. You've ended affirmative action. You get all the best jobs, even if you're not qualified. You can be a Fox Weekend host and be the Defense Department's Secretary of Defense. You can be Kash Patel and be a podcaster who wants to go to Valhalla and run the FBI, as long as you're conservative. You have everything. Why are y'all so angry? What the fuck are you angry about? You've banned all of our books. You've banned Black history. You banned the 1619 Project. You don't have to compete with women for jobs. You've chased them out of the military. You've chased them out of the senior positions in the Department of Defense. You've gotten rid of all the Black history in the museums. Museums are terrified. I have contacts that I'm talking to inside of the Interior Department, people who are running all of those spaces where you can go and see a Civil War memorial or something. The people who work in these places are terrified. They're afraid to tell the real history. The people who are working for the federal government are afraid to say the word Black. You guys have canceled Black scholarships.
Think about that. Okay, all the stuff that's going on here. I mean, particularly the president's declaring, we're going to get rid of all diversity programs, make diversity programs illegal. I mean, think about making information illegal. This is the individual who's been pardoning criminals around the January 6th situation, left and right. And he's going to make a set of programs that deal with diversity illegal. I mean, what's wrong with teaching people how to get along with each other? I'll repeat that. What's wrong with teaching people how to get along with each other? Okay, when you start talking about diversity, okay, that's what it's really all about. Okay, you're talking about how to make people, one of the issues coming out, make people feel comfortable about who they are. Okay, and this is where all that kind of comes out. Okay, but once again, knowing your history. It's really important to know your history, knowing know what's going on. It's not necessarily an indictment against Europeans. It's an indictment in terms of trying to figure out what's going to happen next. The historians talking about we basically, history repeats itself because we don't learn from it. Okay? The whole idea that history repeats itself because we don't learn from it. Okay, and that's kind of where we are today. So therefore, we're repeating a lot of mistakes we made in the past. Okay, so now let's talk about the racism against Mexicans. Okay, you see it in light and out there, clear daylight right now with this Doge and all your ICE people, but it's been going on for a long time.
Now, I'm sure a lot of Mexican Americans know this story, but for the rest of us, let me put you on to something that this country never wanted us to know. There was a decade in Texas where Mexican Americans were hunted, not secretly, not by fringe groups. I'm talking Texas Rangers, sheriffs, and white vigilantes, killing people with badges pinned to their chests like permission slips. And this period has a name: La Matanza, the massacre, 1910 to 1920. And the only reason you didn't learn about it in school is because Texas made sure you never did. So how did this all start? Let me tell you. Texas was in a panic. The Mexican Revolution was happening right across the border. And white ranchers were afraid that the land that they had stolen might not stay stolen. So the state did what America always does when it wants to justify violence. It manufactured a threat. Mexicans are dangerous. Mexicans are bandits. Mexicans are rebels. Mexicans are spies. And once you label an entire group as a threat, you've already written the permission slip for violence. That's when the killings began. Door-to-door raids, kidnappings, interrogations, shootings without trial. Some people were murdered crossing the wrong patch of road. Some were murdered just for being Mexican in the wrong town. Texas called it law and order, but history calls it what it was: state-sanctioned terror. Entire communities lived in fear of men on horseback wearing ranger badges. No warrants, no trials, no accountability. Historians confirm that hundreds of Mexican Americans were killed. And the real number may reach into the thousands, because most of those deaths weren't documented. Families were scared to ask questions. Bodies were dumped in the Rio Grande. Names went unrecorded. And witnesses stayed silent to stay alive. The Rangers carried out lynchings, public shootings, and executions without trial, all under the banner of protection. This wasn't a riot, it wasn't a conflict, it was a purge. By 1919, the violence was so widespread that Texas legislature had no choice but to launch an investigation. The Canales investigation. Hundreds of pages of testimony. Witnesses describing murders, tortures, disappearances. And what happened? Almost no one was punished. A few Rangers were dismissed. Most kept their jobs and some were even promoted. And their findings? Buried. Not taught. Not acknowledged. This wasn't ancient history. People who survived La Matanza lived well into the 1980s and 1990s. Their grandchildren are alive right now. And the fear that still sits in some Mexican American families that don't make noise, fear, that's not cultural memory, that's generational trauma. Texas preserved their mythology and erased the people they terrorized. La Matanza wasn't a footnote, it was an ethnic cleansing. And the only reason most people don't know about it today is because Texas decided that its pride mattered more than the truth.
Think about it. Also in Texas, a lot of your textbooks talk about blacks came there as workers. They didn't talk about slavery at all. But think about replacing history with fairy tales. Okay, but the key is make a target. Find a target, and what you do with that target is manufacture it, pick those group of people and manufacture a threat. Okay, and then once you do that and put it on Fox News and put it out there, now we can do some things by wiping them out. Okay, next one.
White backlash. Throughout American history, every time Black people have made significant progress, there's been a violent, organized, and emotional response from white America. White backlash. Let's go back. After the Civil War, during Reconstruction, newly freed Black men were elected to Congress. Black businesses began to flourish, and Black communities were building schools and buying land. But what happened next? White backlash. Groups like the KKK emerged, Lynchings increased and Jim Crow laws were created to strip away the rights that black people had just gained. That backlash wasn't about oppression. It was about sharing power. It was about white people feeling threatened by equality, not experiencing oppression themselves. But fast forward to Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898. Black leaders were thriving. Wilmington had a black mayor, black-owned newspapers, and one of the most successful multiracial governments in the South. But white supremacists couldn't stand it. They staged the only successful coup in American history, overthrowing the elected government, burning black businesses, and killing hundreds and driving thousands from their homes. That was white backlash. Every time we've risen, they've responded. When black athletes broke barriers, there was backlash. When black students integrated schools, there was backlash. When black professionals started entering boardrooms, there was backlash. And when President Barack Obama became the first black president, it was no different. His election symbolized hope and progress for many of us, but it also exposed the deep resentment festering beneath the surface. That resentment birthed a movement. And Donald Trump didn't create white backlash, he capitalized on it.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the
For decades, white Americans who were uncomfortable with progress stayed silent because racism had become politically incorrect. But Trump and the voices like Charlie Kirk came along and said the quiet part out loud. They used the language of quote-unquote Christian values and America first and taking back our country to make racial fear economic insecurity. It's never about patriotism. It was about white power. This is the cycle of America. Every era of black progress has been followed by white backlash. Reconstruction was followed by Jim Crow. The civil rights movement was followed by mass incarceration. The Obama era was followed by Trumpism. And now as black folks rise and we become educated, we're leading in businesses, we're owning property, and we're creating wealth, we are seeing the backlash again in politics, education, and media. Here's the truth, though. White backlash only happens when we are progressing. It is proof that the system feels our impact. So don't be discouraged. Be alert. Be intentional. Keep building. Keep owning. And keep teaching the next generation. Because every time they push back, it just means we're moving forward.
Moving forward. That's why education is the key. Knowing your history is the key. We need teachers. We need teachers who believe our students are capable of learning. We need teachers who are brave enough to teach the truth. And that's coming in really hard now. You want to do the next video?
Let me fix my bow tie. We at the White House. We back in here. We waiting on President Donald J. Trump. Let's go. Yeah. I look so good in the red.
You ever notice how some of the black people who get the biggest platforms always seem to be the ones who never make white people uncomfortable? Like, they all seem to have this pick me, please accept me type of energy. But what these people don't understand is that's a dangerous spot to be in. Because the moment you lose even an ounce of enthusiasm for the people that you're tap dancing for, you're going to literally watch the support you have disappear. Because the white supremacists that you're pandering to don't reward black honesty. They reward black compliance. And the people who play that game, they get propped up real fast until the moment that they're no longer useful.
What's an area where you break from or differ from President Trump? Where are you a free thinker as it pertains to his agenda?
There are tons of things that I've disagreed with President Trump on. I thought that he responded too quickly to Syria.
What are some others?
You can give me some policies and I can tell you.
Anything specifically on the areas that you speak
Black
about,
America?
which
No.
is about race, about black Americans,
No.
about social policy,
No,
social issues?
I'm fully on board with him, and that's why I go around and I speak positively about him. And I want people to understand that we should be trying something different, and Trump is offering something different.
Candace Owens proves the point I'm making in this video, maybe better than anybody. She's the perfect example of what happens when a black voice is no longer useful to the people who were boosting it. There was a time back in the day where you couldn't escape Candace Owens. Everything she put out was going viral. The white nationalist media rolled her out like she was the official spokesperson for what it is to be the good black. And it damn sure wasn't because she was the sharpest knife in the drawer. It was because she was doing a very specific job. And that job is being the black person that talks down on other black people. That's the position that racist white America loves. And the slot is never filled. They're always hiring. To them, there's never enough self-hating Negroes. The "see, they said it, not us" kind of voice. And for a while, she played that role perfectly. But the moment she stopped spending every day dragging black folks, the moment she stopped being an attack dog for the conservative white audiences, the moment she started aiming her vitriol at the wrong people, you see what happened, right? She disappeared.
All right. Now I want to finally things up with Jasmine Crockett's quote.
We right now have a white supremacist that is sitting in the White House. He is backed up by other white supremacists. And if you really want to know who the criminals are in this country, you can Google it. You don't have to trust me. But the people that commit 80% of the most violent crimes in this country are white supremacists. Yet for whatever reason, they sit and they serve at the pleasure of the president. They are the ones that were there on January 6th, tearing our democracy down physically. And now we have them tearing us down right here from within. Here is the problem.
Of course, Congresswoman, to interrupt you, but President Trump, of course, has denied any allegations he's a white supremacist, and that's why he apparently fired what he. I know your point, but he did fire Darren Beatty in reaction, they believe, in part to his attendance at that conference. Does that change your opinion in any
No,
way?
it doesn't change my opinion, because we saw what he literally recently just posted, and the coddling is for the white boys. That's what's happening right now. I am tired of the white tears. Listen, if you are competent, you are not concerned. When I walk into Congress every single day, you know why I don't feel a way and why you can't make me doubt who I am? Is because I know that I had to work 10 times as hard as they did just to get into the seat. When you look and you compare me to Marjorie Taylor Greene or me to Lauren Boebert, there is no comparison. And that is the life that we have always lived. So the only people that are crying are the mediocre white boys that have been beaten out by people that historically have had to work so much harder. This is why they don't want us to have education. This is why they are trying to literally say we won't fund the HBCUs, because they know that if they've already gone after affirmative action and they're saying, you know what, don't allow them to come into, say, these PWIs, as we call them, don't allow them to come into these institutions. We know why they created the HBCUs in the first place. It was because they wouldn't allow us into the white institutions. And so now they're not allowing us in. And now they're saying, you know what, we're also going to defund the HBCUs. You know why? Because they don't want any more Kamala Harrises. They don't want any more Jasmine Crockett's. But I got news for them. I don't care what they do. We will fight to the end to make sure that we get our due. Because again, if you want to talk about the people that shouldn't be in this country, you probably need to look in the mirror, because the last time I checked, the Native Americans who Summer ICE have been rounding up, or the Puerto Ricans who are absolutely Americans, listen, the only people that came and colonized this place are your ancestors, Trump.
All right. So that kind of concludes this particular section, but now I got an announcement: holiday shopping, Columbia City Theater. That's right here, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, so together we thrive for a holiday market. Also, I like to say that I'll be back next week, and we'll continue with deconstructing, maybe looking at how images and belief systems are constructed within this particular system. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you next week.